In section 10.1, we'll look at what's called correlation. A correlation is the relationship between two variables, x and y, in which x is the independent variable and y is the dependent variable. What does that mean? That y is dependent on whatever you plugged in for x. So you've got x's and y's, which is what we're used to in math courses. And then what we'll do with our x's and our y's is what we normally do with them. We plot them. We plot them as points and we make what's called a scatter plot. Now what we're going to look at inside of our scatter plots is to look for some kind of trend. In this particular course, we're looking to see if there's a pattern where the scatter plot looks like a line, either with a positive slope or a negative slope, or if it doesn't look like it behaves like a line at all. So let's take a look. If we look at this first scatter plot, notice it doesn't look like a line of any kind. It just seems like the points are kind of just everywhere, just thrown off on the graph in various spots. Because of that, because it does not look like a line in any way whatsoever, we say a graph like this looks like it has no correlation, which means what we're looking for is that there is no linear pattern to these points. So there's no linear pattern that we're seeing in this scatter plot. That's why we're going to call it no correlation. Let's look at the second graph. On the second graph, it's not perfect, but it does have the trend of looking like a line. It's all headed in the positive direction. It looks like a line with a positive slope. If we draw a line out like what we did, it would be a line with a positive slope. So that's why we say that this line has a positive. It looks like a graph that has a positive correlation is because it has a positive slope. It is headed in the upward direction as you read the graph from left to right. So this is what's considered a positive correlation, because the linear pattern has a positive slope. As opposed to, let's look at this third type of graph. Notice again, it does behave like a line, except for this time, if you were to draw a line that kind of looks like your points here, notice that your line is going downward as you read it from left to right, which means that this graph has a negative slope, which is why this has a negative correlation, is because the linear pattern has a negative slope when you look at this scatter plot. So again, just a quick summary. If it looks like my scatter plot, if I were to draw a line going through the points that kind of represents the points in the scatter plot, if it has a positive slope, then the correlation is also positive. If we look at this next one and something like this, if the line that you're drawing that kind of is shaped like your points has a negative slope, then we're going to say that the correlation is negative. And worst case scenario is this last one, if it doesn't look like a line at all, then we're going to say that the line has no correlation at all. And that's all we're going to look at in this chapter, is correlation and whether or not our scatter plots look like lines.